Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 recently came out and I thought it was great. Doughy was probably my favorite part about the whole chapter. His character arc and the finale was awesome. So today I'm going to rank all of these 4 chapters from the worst to the best. But quick disclaimer, this is my list, which means I will have different opinions than you. Or maybe we will have the same opinion. Feel free to comment your list in the comments down below. Let's get started. Chapter 1, A Tight Squeeze. Just because this chapter is in last place doesn't mean it's bad. It's just the other chapters have more content in it and better puzzles. However, this chapter does set up the franchise perfectly. You get very familiar with the place and start to learn the very basics of this game, which a chapter 1 should always do, to set up the groundwork for the franchise and then expand upon it as future chapters release. The best part about this chapter is definitely the chase sequence. Huggy Wuggy chasing you in the vents and him just appearing when you try to walk into this room is pretty darn scary. The movements of Huggy Wuggy were just so smooth and it really perfected the concept of a chase sequence in a video game. I still believe that the Huggy Wuggy chase sequence is still the best one in any chapter. But to be honest, I don't really have issues with this chapter. It is a solid chapter, but like I said, the other ones just have a lot more to it. Chapter 2, Caught in a Web. Now this is the chapter where this game started to expand. We met Poppy, we got to see more of the factory, discover more of the lore, and there wasn't just one antagonist. There were multiple like Bunzo Bunny and PJ, and of course the main antagonist was Mommy Longlegs. Now I would admit, I do think Huggy Wuggy from chapter 1 was much scarier and a better antagonist overall, but what carries chapter 2 for me are the mechanics. The green hand is probably my favorite in the entire series. It created a lot of puzzling areas and it got pretty challenging. There weren't really challenging puzzles in chapter 1, probably because it is the first chapter, which makes a lot of sense. But yeah, the green hand in this chapter was just the best part for the puzzles in my opinion. And let's not forget about the mini games, which I thought were perfectly done and so creative. My favorite one probably has to be the memory one with the colors, and it was even pretty funny at the end when the AI robot voice just started saying a bunch of random nonsense that made you think, how is this even possible? The mini Huggy Wuggies was a cool sequence as well, and PJ's mini game where you gotta stop when the music stops playing was pretty scary. This weird looking caterpillar dog, I think it's a dog. Yuck, it's so scary and gross. Now I did say that Mommy Longlegs was kind of a downgrade, but that doesn't mean she is bad. My problem is mainly her design. It's just not scary at all. I'm not saying that I didn't get jump scared by her. Trust me, I did. Especially when she just jumps on you when you're about to grab onto the handle. That part got me. I am mainly talking about the design. I'm not really a fan of it. Also, the chase sequence wasn't as good as Huggy Wuggy's. It felt annoying at times, like you just had to look up at this time to hang onto the handle. And I won't lie, trying to reach a handle that is this high is very slow and clunky. And this is a problem for all the chapters. I'll give it that killing her was just much more satisfying than killing Huggy Wuggy, because you literally crushed her entire body and her legs and arms. Now another highlight of this chapter was seeing the hand or the prototype for the first time. And that part created much more suspense to the story and really showed that it was going to get much more interesting from here. This chapter was able to elevate the franchise much more higher than chapter 1 did, which is mainly why I thought it was better than chapter 1 overall, even with its flaws. Chapter 4, Safe Haven, the latest chapter in the Poppy Playtime franchise. I was surprised at how good this chapter was, but I was a little disappointed in one factor looking back at it, which I'll go into later. First of all, the best thing this chapter does that any chapter hasn't really done are the character arcs and interactions, especially Doughy. You see Doughy interact with Poppy, you discover Doughy's story, and you feel for him. The ending where Doughy dies was sad. It was a different feeling when killing Huggy Wuggy, Mommy Longlegs, and Catnap. Usually when you kill those guys, you are celebrating, but with Doughy, I just felt bad for him. What makes me feel even more bad was that he saved our life from Pianosaurus, and then we ended up murdering him. Yeah, I know he was trying to kill us, but still, it is pretty sad. The puzzles were still challenging, like in chapter 3, which I enjoyed a lot, and the game was able to create suspense like they did with the previous chapters. The lore was probably at its best in this chapter because we found out more about the prototype, and we discovered it was Ollie, and we confronted the doctor, which was pretty cool. I loved his design and how there were like multiple of him chasing you around as you tried to solve the puzzle or gather the green batteries. It actually jump scared me quite a bit. Oh my god! Yarnaby was also quite an awesome section and pretty difficult. Fun fact, when I first played chapter 4, the Yarnaby section where you hide in between walls and solve puzzles at the same time, Yarnaby didn't even spawn, so it was a cakewalk for me, and I didn't realize that he needed to spawn until after I finished the entire chapter, but I did went back in because I did not want to miss out on the experience, and by the time I went back in, the original sequence had a patched because apparently it was like frustrating for players, but I got lucky. But anyways, from my experience, I thought the Yarnaby section was great. Created lots of puzzle sequences, same thing with the Baba Chops, I think that's how you pronounce it. A lot of this chapter just had solid suspense and amazing dialogue. However, it did have two flaws for me. The first flaw was that some of these monsters or toys, whatever you call them, took like multiple hits to kill you, which made it too easy. Even though I was pretty scared of the doctor fight, it was too easy. The doctor had to damage you like 2 or 3 times to fully kill you, and most of the time you could just walk past him. Same thing with Baba Chops. You get like this green toxic on your screen and you can just reposition yourself every time he does that, and then it goes away, and then you just repeat the process. The other flaw was that it just wasn't that scary as chapter 3. I'm not saying it wasn't scary at all, it was just lacking in scariness at times. I think mainly because this chapter is very lore focused that they didn't balance out the other aspects that much. But even with its flaws, this chapter is great. I enjoyed the final battle, which wasn't as good as chapter 3's finale, but still really good. And I believe that this chapter had the best cliffhanger in any chapter. Seeing Huggy Wuggy alive at the end was just so surprising and makes me very, very excited for chapter 5. Wait, that's Huggy Wuggy? What? He's alive? Chapter 3, Deep Sleep. This chapter honestly expanded the franchise massively, like a lot from chapter 2. It expanded on the mechanics, the puzzles, the characters, the environments. We got 2 new hands this chapter, which were used amazingly well in puzzles. The purple hand and flare hand or orange were great additions to the game, and they even made more challenging puzzles with the green hand, which I mentioned earlier that it was my favorite one. And this game was seriously difficult in a good way while also being scary. Catnap is probably the best antagonist ever in the franchise. Like, look at his design and those bones. Ew. He's just very scary looking. And what made this chapter even better was the overall presentation. It established a unique identity, which were the smiling critters. The introduction of this chapter is so child-friendly and scary at the same time. This chapter had the most memorable cast of characters in any chapter, in my opinion. Miss Delight had a scary sequence. Dog Day was just purely frightening and sad. Like, little smiling critters are going inside him to control him. That is just, oh my god. Even the Huggy Wuggy crawling out of the monitor or TV was pretty darn scary. Even though it was short, the execution was great, making it very memorable. And of course, Catnap's final battle was unique, extremely challenging, and it brought something very new to the franchise. Usually this franchise was about the chase scenes, but they get old pretty fast, so the battle with Catnap was fresh and required a lot of skill instead of just running away and looking for the exit. Chase scenes are fun, but they do get repetitive. They still had a chase scene in chapter 3 with Dog Day, and it wasn't annoying or like long or just, repetitive. The whole level design and environments were also the best in this chapter. The whole underground area and the orphanage was fun to explore. Usually the other chapters just had factory areas, offices, all of that, but this chapter has a house, a school, underground, and more. It really makes a game more interesting when there are a variety of settings to explore and interact with. Some of these story scenes and tapes are the best in the entire franchise. Discovering about the Hour of Joy towards the end of the chapter really elevated the story, and it made sense why Poppy was doing all this. The scene where it says find the flower and all these illusions was very suspenseful and really made the story of this chapter so much better, and I was fully locked in with all this. It was amazing. Even though my PC lagged like crazy when this scene was playing, I still enjoyed it. Also, the Catnap jump scare when you grab the battery and he just looks at you for a second and then attacks is the scariest jump scare in the entire franchise. Like, you would not expect that to happen in that case while grabbing the battery. Like, bro is so creepy. Overall, this chapter was able to keep what made the franchise so great with its chase sequences and story, while also expanding on it and providing new ideas that are exciting and fresh. My only flaw that I have is a part of the ending. I feel it wasn't explained very well on how to defeat Catnap, and it was frustratingly hard to understand, but once you understand it, it is tons of fun. So I have ranked every chapter from the worst to the best. If you ended up enjoying this video, please like and subscribe and comment down your list. I will see you all in the next one. Peace!